With Bridgerton Season 4 Part 1 recently being released and it being left on the largest cliffhanger that we could have never expected, we've now got just under a month to wait until Part 2, the final 4 episodes of the season, drops. With the preview trailer being released at the end of Part 1 and it teasing the direction and fate for many of the characters, I wanted to break down the trailer, share what happens in the actual story, and also give my theories and predictions on what I think will happen when the show returns. So let's get into it. Here is Bridgerton Season 4 Part 2 trailer explained. Just to let you know, this video will contain spoilers. So the trailer opened up with Benedict and Sophie standing on the street with one another. Benedict said to her, "I had to see you," and Sophie responded and said, "We were both carried away." This is most likely referring to the cliffhanger that we saw at the end of Part 1 with Sophie and Benedict both being intimate with one another, and Benedict most probably feels like he needs to see her because of the way that she walked away after he asked her to be his mistress. When Sophie said that they both got carried away, Benedict responded to her and said, "Is that all it was to you?" Honestly, I find this so interesting because Benedict has the audacity to stand there and make out like he's the one that's hurt, when in reality, Sophie wants so much more than to be his mistress and she should be the one that's offended because he quite literally offended her. The next part of the trailer then saw Sophie speaking with Violet, and she said, "I've been made aware of a suitable position elsewhere," and it was met with Violet saying, "Has something occurred to make you wish to leave?" I'm guessing that in this scenario, Sophie is going to want to leave because of the feelings that she has for Benedict, and after being intimate with him and in knowing that he only wanted her as a mistress and not his actual partner, it might be something that she just can't get over. Benedict could end up being with somebody else, and it might end up being too much for her to just simply be in the house and watch it all happening. As this conversation was taking place, it cut to Benedict watching Sophie tending to the garden, so it shows that him being in the house is just going to be too much for her, as he'll be everywhere that she looks. Sophie also responded and said, "No ma'am, my desire to leave has nothing to do with anybody in this house." So we know that she's lying. Following this, there was a shot of Violet walking behind Sophie down the stairs, and she spoke the words, "Do you ever get the sense that Sophie is hiding something?" In the previous few episodes, Violet said that she felt like she wanted to protect Sophie and that she thought that she was a kind and caring person that had almost been damaged in some way. So I wonder if in this instance, Violet is going to be worried that something's going on with her. The fact that Sophie's hiding her noble background is what's most likely going to get found out in this next part as well. Violet was having this conversation with Mrs. Wilson, so I feel like Mrs. Wilson might go on the hunt for information about her. If there's one thing the servants are good at, it's being flies on the wall and being good ears to the ground with what's going on. Afterwards, we then saw Sophie burning a letter on the fire. I wonder if this is a note that Benedict maybe wrote to her that she didn't want anybody else seeing, or if it's something that she wrote that she didn't want anybody else finding. The next part of the trailer then saw Benedict speaking with Will Mondrich, and he was almost confiding in him. Benedict said, "There's a woman. She's not a person of any rank, and I have upset her." Will responded and said, "No matter her rank, no woman truly desires to be hidden." This almost connects into the fact that Benedict asked Sophie to be his mistress. Her being his mistress would essentially keep her in the shadows and make her be somebody that doesn't feel deserved enough to be seen. So Will clearly recognizes that. The scene that followed this was Benedict kissing Sophie in the darkness, and Sophie said to him, "Why do you find it suitable to kiss me?" And Benedict said, "Because you are irresistible." This means that even though Sophie is going to be finding it difficult to stay there because of Benedict's presence, she's still going to be drawn to him because she does truly care about him. The second half of the trailer then began with Lady Whistledown's voice. She said, "Dearest gentle reader, there are moments in our lives where we arrive at a crossroads." This is an important line in the trailer because it quite literally connects to all of the characters in the show. For example, we've got Sophie and Benedict and their conflict. We've got Lady Danbury wanting to walk away from Queen Charlotte because she's ready to return home. Violet wanting to be with Marcus despite still grieving Edmund and feeling guilty about it. And also Francesca and the fact that she hasn't reached her pinnacle with John Stirling. And it could be because she might well have feelings for somebody else. Maybe Michaela Stirling, his cousin. To support it further, all of those characters were shown over Lady Whistledown saying those words. The next part of the trailer then saw Benedict saying to Sophie, "I cannot love a maid, and yet you have taken possession of me." This was met with Benedict moving his little finger over Sophie's hand, something that happens in every season of the show between the love interests, so it's finally going to happen between them. Lady Whistledown then said, "We cannot run from it. This was met with the bride being put in her gown on her wedding day, and maybe it could be Sophie and it's teasing the ending. The happy ending that she's always dreamed of." Sophie then said, "What is love in the face of society?" This was her basically insinuating that Benedict being with somebody that was a maid wouldn't go down well in high society, and that even if he loved her, the judgmental nature that people had would most likely cut through in some way and they'd feel the weight of the gossip. As this was said, Lady Whistledown spoke the words, "We must face it head on." This was then intercut with Francesca in Lord John Stirling's arms, but looking over at Michaela, insinuating that something's going to go on there and that Lord John and Francesca are going to be facing their issues head on. Within the novel, Michaela is actually a guy called Michael, and Francesca does end up being with him following Lord John Stirling's death. So I feel like the same thing is most likely going to occur in the show here. There's been such a large focus on this, so maybe the next season is going to be solely focused on them. There was then a look that Michaela gave Francesca where it showed that she most likely felt the same towards her as to what she did. Violet then said the next piece of dialogue, which was, "Will you sacrifice your family?" This was as Benedict was throwing his papers everywhere. If Benedict is with a maid, it could damage the family name, so there might be resistance if he wished to proceed forward like that. Plus, Sophie was also on the floor crying. There was also a shot of Anthony and Kate in bed together, so it showed that the two much-loved Bridgerton characters from season 2 of the show are going to be returning with their child. The final piece of dialogue was, "Whatever you choose, you must live with it forever." This was met with a quick succession of shots. One was of Violet looking over her shoulder, showing that her being with Marcus might end up causing some friction amongst the family. One of Francesca walking down the hallway late at night, maybe going to pay Michaela a visit. Benedict going after Sophie, and Sophie looking at herself in the mirror, questioning what's going on. I wonder if Sophie is going to eventually reveal her true identity. If she admitted that she was from a noble background, then the viewpoint of her not being good enough to be with Benedict wouldn't stand as much. Plus, it would also allow Lady Penwood to get her comeuppance for the lying and deceiving nature that she's had in taking away the fortune that Sophie was supposed to inherit. With Lady Penwood and her children moving next door to the Bridgertons, it does make me wonder if she's going to try and get Sophie to lose her job, and if the secrets that Lady Penwood has might start to rise to the surface. Another avenue that I think we could see being explored in this next part of the season is King George's death. It was mentioned in part 1 that Queen Charlotte was fearing being alone after he died, and with us knowing just how strong of a couple they are and how much she loves him, that could provide a heartbreaking moment for sure. Then from there, the trailer came to a close. This next part of the season does look like it's going to offer up a lot more drama and the tea that everybody loves in the show. As much as I'm excited to see Sophie and Benedict's story being explored more, I am interested in seeing what's going to happen between John Stirling, Michaela, and Francesca. I guess we'll find out on the 26th of February when the final 4 episodes release. So, there you have it, Bridgerton Season 4 Part 2 trailer explained. If you want to see more videos on Bridgerton Season 4, then check the playlist below. There's going to be a ton of videos between now and the release of Part 2, so be sure to subscribe so you don't miss them. What do you think will happen in Season 4 Part 2? Share your thoughts in the comments. As always, thanks for tuning into the video and I'll see you in the next one.